Hello and good morning, everyone. My name is Adelaide, and I am a certified nutrition and wellness consultant here with Rose Natural Wellness. Thank you so much for joining us today on another amazing YouTube Live Q&A where we answer all of your most important questions related to nutrition and sustainable wellness. So, I'm really excited to dive into today's topic. This is something that I'm really passionate about, and I find that a lot of women, especially, really struggle with this particular topic. So, this is something that I really want to dive into at a deeper level. And it's also the reason why we have an entire hour long course on this topic so that we can really help to support people with this specific topic that we're going to dive into today because it is a big one that a lot of people struggle with. So, what we are going to discuss today is craving control. So, like I mentioned, this is something that is very challenging for a lot of people. So, as we go along, I'm going to address a few of kind of the big frequently asked questions or main topics that I get asked very regularly. And if you have additional questions that come up and you want to get some answers related to cravings, please go ahead and drop those right in the chat, and I will do my very best to provide you with the best answers possible related to this topic. So let's go ahead and dive in. Basically, we're going to get started with talking about first and foremost, why do cravings happen? What cravings are? We're going to then dive into some specific causes of cravings and some strategies to help with addressing those causes. We're going to talk about some ways that we can learn how to satisfy our body's needs and our taste buds at the same time because they don't always align, and we'll dive into that in just a minute. And then finally, at the end of this brief live, we are going to talk about just three simple tips that you can start trying this week to help you feel more in control of your cravings. So let's go ahead and dive in. And again, this is something that we cover in an entire hour long class about craving control. So, if you are interested in learning more, please feel free to join us for one of our classes. We also have a full article on this topic called Craving Control 101, and there is a link for that in the description. So, definitely check that out if you would like to learn more. So, first and foremost, let's talk about what the difference between hunger and cravings is because they are very different. So, hunger is typically something that comes on more gradually. So, we may start to feel a little bit hungry, and as time goes along, that feeling really builds. So, it is satisfied with a variety of different foods, and it's typically something where you will find if you're feeling hungry, you're hungry for a lot of different things, and not just particularly hungry for one specific type of food or snack. So it's driven by your physical need for energy. So, for example, if you have not eaten all morning and it gets to be 12 p.m., 1 o'clock, and you are starting to feel really hungry, that's a good sign that that is true hunger because your body is looking to satisfy its energy needs by eating food, right? So this could be something too where work gets away from you and the day is moving really quickly and you hadn't had the opportunity to eat lunch or eat your regular snack, and you might start to feel very hungry. That's going to be definitely a signal that hunger is what we're experiencing rather than a craving. Versus when it comes to cravings, cravings tend to show up pretty suddenly. And there's typically a specific type of food, a specific type of taste or texture that we are really craving in that particular moment. And this may be linked to certain emotional or situational triggers. So, a good example of this is if you are driving over to your friend's house in the afternoon to stop by and say hello, and you pass by McDonald's and you smell the fries cooking, and you may not have necessarily been hungry, but all of a sudden in that moment, the smell of French fries being cooked triggers your brain, and you start to feel like you are craving fast food. That's going to be more of a craving. You may not have necessarily have been hungry up until that point, but the situational trigger of being near McDonald's and smelling the good smells that are coming out can be a trigger that you are now craving French fries. This can also be things that are linked to our emotions. We find that oftentimes, if we're experiencing high levels of stress, sadness, grief, boredom, even there's many different emotions that we may experience, sometimes even positive emotions like feelings of excitement or joy can also lead to cravings. So these are just kind of some things to be aware of, and that is going to be the big difference. Is hunger usually comes on slowly, and you are actually hungry for a variety of different foods to satisfy your energy needs, versus cravings have less to do with actually satisfying your energy or nutrient needs, and rather it's more of an emotional or situational trigger where you are suddenly wanting something very, very specific. Now, one thing that I see that is a big mistake that a lot of people make when it comes to cravings versus hunger is when people are craving these different foods, typically that's going to fall into the category of sugary sweet type of foods or kind of fatty, fast food, high fat type of foods. And because of that, there is a really negative connotation that these things are labeled as bad foods. Certainly, they are less healthy than other options, but I do want to really caution you about using those labels good and bad because there is room in our healthy diet for balance. So, what I often see as a big mistake that people make when they are craving different foods is that they try to restrict those foods and just avoid it, pretend it's not there. And while this may be an effective strategy for some people, or it may work in the short term, the problem with this approach is that it typically teaches you to feel sort of shameful about your cravings. Again, we're talking about labeling these foods that we're craving as bad foods. And so when we're trying to restrict them and avoid them, it teaches us at a subconscious level that we should be shameful of the things that we're craving. And that is not a good approach. It's just going to backfire and lead to a lot of negative things. So, restricting these items that typically bring us joy and that we're really strongly craving can often cause very strong negative emotions. And it feeds this vicious cycle where you're trying to restrict and just push it away, keep it out of your mind. But then at some point, most people will get to the point where the what the hell effect kind of kicks in, and you're like, well, I may as well just eat the fries, eat the cheeseburger, eat the birthday cake. And then people will typically give in to those cravings, eat the food that they have labeled as bad that they were craving, and then start to feel really bad about it after the fact because they just ate a bad food that they shouldn't have eaten. So it really does feed kind of this vicious cycle of negative emotions. And it also doesn't honor our cravings as a vital natural signal from our bodies. So cravings realistically are not our enemy. They are a useful tool that our body uses to try and communicate certain information to us. We just have to learn how to decode and understand that information so that we can use it as an effective tool to help support our health. And finally, my other big issue with trying to be restrictive about cravings is it completely leaves out the 80-20 rule. If you've been following my channel for a little bit of time, or you have seen some of our other social media posts or blog articles, you will find that I talk a lot about the 80-20 rule. And this is what I like to call kind of our golden rule of nutrition, because what it means is 80% of the time, we are focusing on really healthy, whole food options that are going to elevate our health and really provide us with some amazing health benefits. Whereas then, if we're leaning into that 80% of the time being very, very healthy, then 20% of the time we can reserve for some of those less healthier options, for the glass of wine on girls' night, for the piece of cake at your nephew's birthday party, for the occasional, random trip to a fast food joint to get your favorite burger and fries. These things can still be a part of our balanced diet. We just have to be really effective at how we're implementing that so we can really honor that balance of the 80-20 rule. And that's, again, one of those main reasons why I feel that restricting certain foods, especially foods that we are craving, is something that will backfire and cause more harm than good. So, with that in mind, let's kind of talk about why cravings occur and what's going on behind the scenes when cravings come about so that we can better be aware of those, plan ahead, and use them as an opportunity to elevate our health. So, first and foremost, when it comes to some of the main reasons behind why we experience cravings, oftentimes it's going to be a physical effect. So, physical effect would be things like low blood sugar, dehydration, or possible nutrient imbalances. And we're not talking necessarily about nutrient deficiencies. We're more so talking about perhaps you have not had enough magnesium, for example. Maybe you're low on sodium because you're sweating a lot, so your salt intake is kind of low for the day. These are some things that can occur physically, which may cause cravings to happen. Now, from the next perspective, our second big trigger for cravings is going to be the emotional component. So, like I briefly mentioned earlier, these triggers for cravings can occur based off of stress, boredom, loneliness, fatigue, and a variety of different emotions. We may also see that come about when we are grieving, when we are sad, but even when we're having positive emotions like joy, excitement, celebration, these can also be emotional triggers of cravings. So it's really important to be aware of how you're feeling when cravings occur so that we can better understand why these cravings are happening and what kinds of information it's trying to tell our bodies. Now, finally, the third main component that triggers cravings is typically behavioral in nature. So, behavioral, we're talking about things like habitual snacking at certain times or in certain environments, or certain behaviors or situations that may trigger cravings. So, driving home by McDonald's and smelling that every day can be sort of a behavioral or a situational trigger. If you go out with friends and all of your friends are eating dessert after a meal, whether you are hungry for dessert or not, you may be inclined to lean into that craving. You may experience cravings for dessert, and you may be kind of more influenced to satisfy those cravings in that given situation. So, again, I just really want to reiterate that cravings are absolutely natural. Every person on this earth experiences certain cravings at certain times, and we can use this as an effective tool to help us better understand our bodies and make sure that we are honoring our health and supporting our health in a real way. So, some strategies that I have that we can really lean into when it comes to managing cravings are always first starting with balanced meals. This is something that is so key and is often overlooked, but I really, really want to emphasize the major importance of having balanced meals. What a balanced meal is going to look like is half your plate is full of healthy fruits and veggies. Those are going to be our healthy carbohydrates. A quarter of your plate is going to be healthy whole grains. This is going to provide us with a lot of good dietary fiber. And these are going to be complex carbohydrates, so they will break down in your body over time and allow for our hunger to kind of stay at bay and for our bodies to feel what we call satiety, which is just that feeling of satisfaction after eating a nutrient dense meal. And then the last quarter of our plate is going to be our healthy, high quality proteins. So this can be whatever that looks like to you. If that is a serving of a hearty steak, a serving of chicken breast, great. It may also be something plant based like tofu or some complementary plant based proteins that you're having on your plate to meet those protein goals. But the biggest thing is we want half that plate of fruits and veggies, a quarter of that plate with healthy whole grains, and a quarter of that plate with our high quality protein. This does not just limit itself to our actual meals. We're talking about snacks as well. We'll dig into that specific recommendation in just a little bit, but just keep in mind that a balanced plate is not just restricted to a specific meal on a specific plate. We also want to incorporate those concepts into any snacks that we're having, especially when it comes to this topic, because when we do experience cravings, oftentimes that is going to manifest in the form of snacking, perhaps not as much in the form of meals. It can, but either way, the bottom line is we really want to aim for that balance. Now, the next thing is we want to aim for fiber first. Fiber first is a really, really great rule, especially if you are perhaps experiencing cravings from the physical standpoint of having low blood sugar. This is going to really help with blood sugar balance and help keep us on a good path with our healthy eating. So, fiber first refers to eating your healthy fruits and veggies at the beginning of the meal. This can also be your healthy whole grains because those have a lot of fiber as well. But when we eat those first, that's going to really help insulate the rest of our meal by providing us with that good dietary fiber so that we can better digest the foods that we're eating. And again, it helps to give us that feeling of satisfaction and fullness so that we can sustain our energy levels over a long period of time without feeling hungry very quickly after our meals. Next thing is going to be plenty of water. As we mentioned, dehydration can actually be a big trigger for cravings. So we want to make sure that you are staying adequately hydrated. It is now the end of June. We are full swing into summertime, and hydration is more important than ever. As you're outside sweating and continuing with your exercise and being out in the sunshine, you will naturally lose your water and start to become dehydrated if you're not keeping up with that. So, we always want to aim for about half your body weight in ounces of water daily. And you will need to increase that if you are sweating a lot, if you're out in the sun, if you're exercising, or if you're drinking a lot of caffeine or alcohol. You will absolutely need to increase that water intake accordingly. For any of my folks that are out in Colorado, you absolutely especially need to increase that water intake because you are at altitude, and that puts a lot more stress on your body to maintain your hydration balance. So please increase your water intake accordingly. Now, the next thing is something that seems kind of silly, perhaps, or just really easy. But this is something that is absolutely vitally important when it comes to assessing our cravings and adjusting accordingly. And that's going to be to pause and check in on how you're feeling so that you can actually assess if what you're feeling is cravings or if it's actually hunger. By taking a pause, you can kind of breathe and give yourself that opportunity to determine if it's cravings or hunger, and then move forward accordingly. This also gives you an opportunity, too, to assess if you are having any physical, emotional, or behavioral and situational triggers that are causing certain cravings to come up. So definitely take a brief pause and check in with that before you start leaning into satisfying those cravings or even hunger if that's what you're experiencing. And then the next thing is we want to set ourselves up for success by having some alternatives that are available to help us honor cravings in a healthy way. Like I mentioned, we have our 80/20 rule for a reason because we are aiming for honoring the balance in our lifestyle and our needs. So, by having some alternatives available, this is a phenomenal way to really honor those cravings, but also stay on track for your health goals. So, for example, we have a great recipe on our website about a 5 minute microwave protein mug brownie. This is a phenomenal way to help honor those cravings. So, if you're somebody that tends to crave chocolate, especially if it's around the time of your period, this is going to be a really, really key thing to help provide kind of some alternatives. It's really common that a lot of women experience those chocolate cravings around the time of their period for a couple reasons. And one is what we touched on when it comes to a nutrient imbalance. That's going to be iron in this case. So, when women are menstruating, we lose a lot of iron very, very quickly, and our bodies feel that. So, that's where we often will find ourselves craving chocolate a lot for the iron and the magnesium because our bodies start to become a bit more depleted during that time frame. So, chocolate cravings are very common in a lot of women, especially during that menstrual cycle. So, having some alternatives available, like our 5 minute protein mug brownie, that's going to give us some options where we can still honor that chocolate craving, but we can address it with a healthier alternative to support our goals and honor that craving at the same time. So, if you are somebody who definitely craves chocolate, I would really recommend that you check out that recipe in the articles section on our website. Now, finally, having some more healthy options available as well as alternatives to things that we're craving is going to be really, really key. So, this could be something like having a fruit bowl really accessible on your countertop, having things that are healthy, like maybe hummus and carrots at the front of your fridge so that they're easy grab and go options. You can have things ready to go in your pantry, and this is something also where we can really tie in some of our other strategies that we discuss on this channel and in our classes, such as meal planning and meal prep. This is such a great way to get ahead of cravings because if we have a plan and we have our ingredients ready and we've even made our whole meal so it's prepped and ready in the fridge, we are set. And this helps us to really address cravings because rather than have an experience where we're having a craving that's really, really strong and we don't have any food readily available, so it's just kind of that nice, easy option to go to McDonald's or, whatever that looks like, lean into that craving. Instead, if we have those meals or snacks pre-prepped and ready for us, it takes a lot of the kind of impulsiveness out of that situation. So we will be more inclined to eat the healthy option that we have already prepared. And oftentimes we'll find that that is sufficient to actually satisfy cravings simply because it will allow for time for that craving to pass. And when we're nourishing our body with the proper nutrients, that typically satisfies cravings very effectively. Because again, one of the big things that causes cravings to come about is possible nutrient imbalances. So while we may physically feel that we are craving candy or sweets or fast food, what we find is after we've actually eaten more of a healthy meal, those cravings go away because it wasn't actually the sweets or the fast food that we were craving. It was actually the nutrients that our bodies were craving, but sometimes that signal gets a little bit disjointed when we are having those cravings. So, by aiming to try a healthy option first before leaning into that craving, I find that oftentimes people will actually stop having those cravings if they are eating the nutrient dense option because their bodies are just looking for specific nutrients. So, those are going to be some really key things to help us out. So, essentially, to kind of break this down to be a little bit more clear and effective, The way that we are going to help satisfy our bodies as well as our taste buds is really having balanced meals and balanced snacks. So, we're going to also want to aim to practice the 80-20 rule. And again, that's where 80% of the time we're aiming for our healthiest, nutrient dense options, so that 20% of the time we can enjoy the less healthy but sugary fast food kind of taste satisfying options. Now, we also want to make sure that we are drinking plenty of water. Dehydration is a huge trigger for cravings. So, staying very hydrated is absolutely key. We always want to check in on how we're feeling, and we want to have healthier options available for when those cravings arise. That way, we can address those effectively. So, that's kind of a good overview for the main strategies that we can use to help ourselves. Now, let's talk about specifically three simple tips that you can try this week to really feel more in control of your cravings and of your health. So, number one is going to be planning your balanced meals and snacks and having those readily available. So, we always want to aim with every meal and ideally every snack to have a good balance of protein, carbohydrates, and healthy fats. This is going to be absolutely key to hit all of the main points so that we can satisfy our hunger, which is really the most important thing, satisfy our nutrient needs, and decrease and limit our cravings. So, when it comes to our meals, like we talked about the balanced plate, half that plate needs to be healthy fruits and veggies, a quarter of that plate needs to be healthy whole grains, and a quarter of that plate needs to be high quality protein. Now, when it comes to our snacks, as much as we want to aim as often as possible, we want to aim for getting as many of those macronutrients in with our snacks, but at the very least, we want to aim for 2 out of the 3 of our macronutrients. And in a perfect world, we want to aim for high fiber options as well. The high fiber is going to help us with that feeling of satiety. So we are satisfied after eating. We're not getting hungry for quite a good chunk of time. This helps us to nourish our bodies effectively and help to prevent some cravings. So, a good example would be hummus and carrots. You could do apples and peanut butter. You could do salami and cheese. Lots of great options out there, but we really want to aim at least to hit 2 out of those 3 macronutrients to help support our health. Now, the second one, again, is going to be drinking plenty of water. I cannot overstate how important this is for supporting our health. This is going to keep us nourished and hydrated so our bodies can effectively digest, so that we can keep our energy levels and our brains really on the right track. So, drinking plenty of water is going to be absolutely huge. You want to aim for half your body weight or more in ounces of water every single day. Now, the third trick that we can try, and again, this one is really, really, really important. This is going to be taking a pause. So, we want to pause before our meal to start to assess if we are hungry or if we're just craving something. We want to pause in the middle while we're eating to check in and see how far away we are from being full or if we're just craving more. This is going to give us an opportunity to better assess how much food we really need to eat in that particular moment to nourish our bodies effectively. And just remember that it takes time for the stomach to signal back up to the brain that we're starting to feel full. So, if we're eating really, really quickly, we may end up overeating because our brain has not had time to receive the signal from our stomach saying that we're full. So, pausing in the middle of eating is also a good option to kind of give our bodies time to catch up and check in on that balance. And then finally, pausing after your meal or snack is going to help you to better assess again your level of satiety, how full you are. assess if you are still hungry and you're looking to eat more. And it will help you to better assess how you are feeling about the food that you're eating and adjust accordingly. So if you finish your meal or snack, I recommend sitting for about 5 minutes to allow your body some time to rest and digest. That way, you can receive these signals from your body to determine if you're still hungry. If you are still hungry, I recommend leaning into another healthy snack or meal option to help you support your body's energy needs. And if you are finished with that meal or snack, this is a great opportunity to check in on how it made you feel. So that way we can adjust accordingly. So if you decided to put the craving aside and choose a healthier option, how did that type of food make you feel? Did it satisfy your craving? Do you feel like your hunger has been satisfied? Are you still hungry? How are you feeling? If you did decide to lean into your craving as a embracing the 80-20 rule, then check in on how that made you feel after you ate whatever food you're craving. Do you feel better? Do you feel satisfied? Do you feel that your hunger is gone? Does it change the emotions that you're feeling? How is your stomach digesting this food? It's really important to pay attention to those items as well, because that gives us some really important information on how we're feeling and what we need in order to move forward with adjusting to our body's needs. So, those are going to be our three main tips that you can try right away to help with controlling and satisfying those cravings. So, again, plan your balanced meals and snacks. Make sure that there is a macronutrient balance in every meal and snack. Drink plenty of water and stay super hydrated. And three, pause before, during, and after a meal or snack to assess how you're feeling and your level of hunger or cravings so that you can move forward. So, these have been some really important key tips that I hope have been really helpful for you. And just remember that these are going to be practices. I don't expect that you will be perfect at this right away, but the more that you practice these skills and the more that you lean into adjusting to your body's needs, the more that you will be able to effectively listen to your body and address your hunger, cravings, and nutrient needs. And you will be able to, over time, develop that mindful and intuitive eating skill so that healthy eating becomes kind of a no brainer for you. And it's just a lot more easy to implement. So I hope that these strategies have been helpful to you. Thank you so much for joining us on today's live. And after this video, if you have additional questions or you would like some specific support, you are always welcome to put a comment in the chat if there's a certain topic or question that you would like us to cover next. And if you are ready for personalized guidance to help support your unique nutrient and health goals, please feel free to visit our website and book a free 15-minute discovery call. This call gives us an opportunity to get to know you and understand your needs and make sure that I'm the best fit to work with you and that we will be able to help each other effectively. So feel free to book your free 15-minute discovery call on our website. That'll be rosenaturalwellness.com/discovery-call. And there is a link for that in the video description as well. As always, I hope that you have a healthy and happy day, and we'll see you next time.